Today we are going to be talking to the locations department, and we have some awesome people here, some people that, I really love and like. We have Melanie Morse, we have Heath, we have the awesome Jazlyn, and we have the amazing Jhane. So they're going to be chatting with us about what it's like working in the locations department. They'll be answering some of your questions at the end. Just as always, we like to say that this will be recorded. It's recording now. So if you don't want to be on camera, you can just turn your video off. We just always like to let you guys know ahead of time. So as always, thank you guys for coming here. And we have to thank the Film Neighborhood Network for putting this together, for taking their time, and for everyone coming to join. So thank you all so much as always. So Melanie and Jazlyn, before we get started with the questions, I kind of want to just have you two answer this question just to give everybody a brief on what is the actual locations department? Because we go into these in-depth questions, but I think we kind of need to just give a general synopsis of what the locations department is and what they do on a film set. And I'm just saying everybody can answer, but because you guys are location managers, I figure Mel and Jazlyn can answer this before we go into the other questions.
You want to go, Mel?
No, you go. You go first.
Okay. Locations is like we're along for the entire process. We're often one of the first people hired to find the locations, and then we carry it all the way through into wrap. Making sure that everything's cleaned up. So it's everything from finding the locations months ahead of shooting, managing the logistics, managing it on set, making sure the plans that we set in place during pre-production actually work out on set. And then it's working along the way and making sure we're ahead of the curve and that we're cleaning up behind us as we go. So it's, in a broad sense, it's kind of just a forever revolving door of activity.
Mel, do you want to add anything to that?
I guess I would just say yes to all those things. And then one of the things I really like about working in locations is that you do work with all the other departments. So that's just something that, it's pretty great, especially if you're still searching for your place in the film community, because you have a lot of contact with the art department. If that's something you're interested in, you have a ton of contact with the grips and the electrics. And, so that's another thing, is that I don't think there's any other department that deals with everybody except for us in production.
And we kind of get an understanding of what people need, and a lot of people out of New York, at least in New York, a lot of location managers become producers because they have an idea of what every department needs, and eventually what things cost, or what the headaches are for certain things. So, and you do that all the time, dealing with all departments. And eventually it only makes sense that you'll understand what they'll need when they ask for it. Say when you're a producer, you have to budget those kind of things. And what does a big nighttime setup mean? What does like 5 days of prep mean? What does a giant house compared to a park? So many different things, but it's definitely a good stepping stone for that, I believe.
Yeah, I feel like every department always talks about, or there's this battle of like, what is the hardest department? And I just, I haven't worked in it, but I feel like locations is so tough. Like, this isn't a knock to anybody, but I don't know, locations just seem like it's so tough. Like, if you don't get a location, nothing else, like, you can't film anything else there. It's just like, you can't do anything if you don't have or secure the location. So I just feel like it's a lot of headache, and a lot of pressure, especially when things change. It's like, well, now we got 2 days to figure out how we can get this place and get all the paperwork signed. And so kudos to you guys, for real.
Yeah, the changes really wreck our department. That's the biggest stress. Most of the time the art department needs won't change. All the needs of the other departments won't change, but we will then have to, deal with the changing schedule. And a lot of times locations are not happy about that. So,
actor availability, weather, people come up with a bright new idea that they want to squeeze in 3 hours before we decide to do it, and it's like, okay, here we go.
You got to smile a lot and laugh a lot. It's the only way to get through it.
Alrighty, so we're gonna get into the first question. Jhane, we're gonna start with you. So just tell us where you're from and how you broke into the industry.
So I am from the lovely Buffalo, New York. I started in the industry working on the first purge. I think that might have been the summer of 2017, fall 2017. So I was a location PA in the office, and that was my first film job. And then after that, I was a unit PA on A Quiet Place 2, Eco PA on Billions, and then I'm currently on a unit PA on City on a Hill for Showtime.
And that's in New York City, correct?
Yeah, so I'm not in Buffalo anymore, but I am in New York City.
Awesome, thank you. Justin?
Sorry, what's the question?
Where are you from and how did you break into the industry?
I'm from New York City. I started as a PA. I started PAing when I was like 16 in high school and doing it on summers and weekends. I remember skipping school to do it. Any chance I got. And then I went to school in Buffalo at UB, and it wasn't the best film school, to be honest. I think Buffalo, I found out after meeting you guys, Buffalo State ended up kind of being a lot better. But I wouldn't have known from living in New York City. So I just thought the bigger school would be the bigger film program, and it wasn't. And I was ready to go back home to New York City and PA during the summer in between college. And Marshall started coming up, and somebody's like, "Hey, they do movies here too now, right?" I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. Okay, let's figure it out." And then one thing led to another, and I met some really great people who teed me up for really great opportunities, and I all of a sudden had a career path in locations. Somebody gave me an opportunity to be a manager, and I loved it. I worked super hard. They paid me very little, and I worked a lot of hours, and it's what I wanted to do, and I found a lot of joy in it, and now I have a true career path, and I never saw it coming ever. I didn't even know what I wanted to do, but getting into locations, I did an assistant job once, and it was kind of like, oh, you like everything with a PA, except you don't have to stand in the corner and like be watched by everybody like a hawk all the time. There's a little bit more freedom, if you will, and a little bit more responsibility at the same time. So that's kind of the appeal initially was. But.
Thank you. Heath?
Sure. My name is Heath. I got my start as I interned as a unit PA while I was in college. And then since then, the people who I've worked with have brought me on to future projects.
Awesome. And so how many years has it been so far, Heath, that you've been in the industry?
I started in the summer of 2017, so 3.
3 years. Awesome.
4.
4. Well, yeah. Going on 4, right? I guess technically 3, 4.
Right.
Melanie?
So I'm Melanie Morris. I'm also from Buffalo, New York. My first film was called Winter's Dream, and I feel like it was in like 2014, maybe. I actually can't remember. It wasn't really all that long ago, but it was one of those super crazy indies where everyone's doing like 4 different huge jobs all at the same time. So, you get your feet wet pretty quickly and everyone's in it together. And then I just got hired as a location manager right off the bat for these other 2 shows, one person departments, also indie films. And then a couple summers ago, I location managed Crown Vic. I moved into A Quiet Place 2 with almost everybody that I see here. And that one I dipped down to an ALM, which was actually really good because I had a lot to learn on big budget Hollywood movies. Just did Guillermo del Toro with also almost everybody on this thing, Nightmare Alley. And now I'm in Philadelphia working on a film called Hustle, which is a Netflix movie in the locations department as an assistant location manager.
Awesome.
That's
So
me.
we'll kind of just keep it going with you. Can you tell me what your current position is and what that actually entails?
Well, right now I'm working as an assistant location manager. So basically that entails the location manager will let you know which locations that you're in charge of. So, on any given film, you might have 20 or 30 locations. It really just depends. And you're basically managing that one space and all the logistics around that. Oftentimes you'll have assistants working with you on those. So yeah, you're creating maps, you're creating, you're figuring out where people are using the bathroom, where people are gonna eat, all the logistics around a location I feel like the assistant manager is basically just the manager on the ground, where the location manager is overseeing everybody. And of course, they come onto the ground too, depending on how big the movie is. I don't know. Did I just explain that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Heath, can you tell me what your current position is in locations and what that entails?
I'm effectively a location assistant, and that entails me just making my boss look good. So it's a lot of anticipating his needs and preparing for when things might go wrong on set, making sure that all of the departments have their needs met and relaying that information to the managers.
So for people who have no idea, Heath, we need some specifics. You got to give us some little specifics of like, I guess what like give us an example of a task or something. Just
Yeah,
for-
I got you, Jazlyn. Yeah. It's the specifics are down to waste management, where are we going to collect the trash at the end of the night, what lights have to come off, what animals in the neighborhood might bark, and we gotta take care of that. If a producer wants the Wi-Fi password, it's just a lot of fine details that the manager might not be able to do because they're looking for a pharmacy for next week.
Got it. Thank you, Heath. Justin, your role and what that entails.
Right now, I'm a location manager on indie film for Hulu, and basically a lot of it is like as a manager, we have to find like all the locations with the help of our ALMs and the scouts, and then everything around it. So it's like not just filming. So once you find a set, a location that you're gonna film in, it's like what do we need out of it? Do we have to come in and paint the walls because we don't like the white? Are we gonna set a barn on fire? Like what is it that we're doing there, and can we do it? Because it has to work for the scene. If it doesn't, then we have to move on and find something else. And then after that, everybody has their own needs. Camera wants to put something on the roof. Okay, let's find out if we can do that. Is it safe? Lighting wants to put something in somebody's driveway next door because they need to get the right angle for that light. Can we do that? So it's everything around that. It's like creating a bubble around every one of our sets. And then on top of that, it's where are we parking? Are we getting permission from the city? Permits? Is the neighborhood happy? Is the neighborhood informed? That way Heath isn't running around so much doing damage control because people are notified. But like everything, something happens. Somebody's dog barks, somebody pulls out of the driveway at a wrong time. And but it's a good thing that we did that ahead of time, because it's like, oh, do we know that person? Yeah, that's Sue down the street. I met her last week because we were telling her about we were going to be there for 5 days. So she has my number, I have hers. So it's kind of being ready for the inevitable. It's like Murphy's Law. Anything that can happen will happen. And it's almost like it always happens. And then it's also catering. Where are we parking? And it also has to always be close. Certainly in COVID right now, they can't fit, like we can usually do passenger vans where you put 15 people in a passenger van. Now you can put like 4 if you're lucky. So that's like more drivers, and Teamsters are super expensive, and the producers are super pressured to not use them at all. So they always had to be close to save you travel time back and forth, because you just burn daylight and you burn out of your 12-hour shoot day. And now even more so, it's more important. So we have to kind of get creative with tents or making things more walking distance. And so it's certainly trickier in COVID.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Jhane, your current position and what do you do?
So I'm currently a unit PA with City on a Hill with Showtime. So the unit PA is an entry-level position in locations department. So every location that we use like belongs to someone or to the city. So we just have to make sure that we keep it clean. So the unit PA, that's making sure that you collect the trash, making sure that you're cleaning behind the crew before we start filming and once we wrap at the end of the night. We're making sure that we have enough seats and that the catering space is sufficient for the crew. Sometimes we're delivering checks. Sometimes the location assistants and location managers what have you, relate information to the residents in the neighborhoods that we're filming in. Signage is like a really, really huge thing. You don't want the director, the producer, or anyone asking where the bathroom is. That's like the last thing. So we put up signs directing the crew to catering, to holding, to crafty. I work a lot with crafty and the catering department a lot, as far as cleaning and trash and where they can place their trucks and stuff like that. And I think that's about it.
Thank you. I think the next question will be more for Mel and Justin, but Jhane and Heath, feel free to chime in. After reading the script the first time, what is kind of like the first step you do before finding a location or for finding a location after reading a script?
Do you want me to start, Justin? I'll go first. So I'll read a script, and depending on, sometimes they don't even have a location list yet, so I'll pull out all the locations and make a big list out of them. Once you kind of once you get the script and you have a chance to look it over as a manager, you would then start to talk to the director about their vision, and definitely start connecting with the production designer. Between the director and the production designer, you need to know what they're thinking. So I think at that point you just start scouting. You know, a lot of times if you have a scout, you'll relay the information to the scout, send the scout out. And Justin, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, and then and sometimes like you're building relationships with new people, and so often, certainly before COVID, you would get in a car with the production designer and the DP, and often they're just getting to know each other too. So everybody kind of like, you read a script, and then sometimes the director has their own vision, but they're all kind of building it together. And often, some directors are different. Some are very like, they know exactly what they're looking for, and they can either be stubborn, just with their vision. And then sometimes they don't know what they want until they see it. So kind of walking them through places, kind of talking about things. Everybody's different, but it's like sitting in a car. We'll sit in a car for hours and hours, driving all day for literally a couple of weeks before anybody else is in town, just locking locations because we can't plan anything else without that. They might be casting and writing, rewriting certain scenes and stuff, but for the first like 2 weeks when we're on board, it's like we're in the car getting to know each other. Everybody's kind of building that vision together and find out, like, really hammer home what we're looking for, and then go from there.
Thank you. Heath and Jhane, do you guys have anything you want to add?
I can't. I actively avoid scouting. I hate it.
Why? I'm curious now. Why do you hate it?
Because it's so, as much as I'd like to think that I have the artist's eye and I can see perfectly what kind of decrepit bridge would make an Oscar-winning moment, it's just a lot of it. I think the burden of having to find a good-looking location with tons of support buildings and and plus, like, I don't even know my own hometown. If anyone asks, I'm like, am I the only one from Rochester? If anyone's like, Heath, you're from Rochester, find us a barber shop with a water slide, I wouldn't know where to look. I would ask Justin. Jhane, do you share in my sentiment?
No, I think scouting is awesome. I think I will say that when I worked in the Purge, and with City on a Hill, I love finding support spaces. It's like a hobby of mine. So the Purge, I got to help out a lot with finding spaces for background and hair and makeup. I think it's really fun. I'm sorry, Heath. I can't back you up.
I love you for that, Jhane. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say, I love finding support spaces. It's like my hobby.
It's really cool. Like, I like the challenge of it. Like, what, 100 people? What? I just like it.
If people aren't familiar, can you just briefly explain what a support space is that you're talking about?
So a support space, usually it depends. On A Quiet Place 2, we had 4. We had stunt support space, which is a room for them to get dressed in and hang out in between shots. And then we have a support space for background. And then we have one for hair and makeup. depending on what we find, sometimes hair and makeup and wardrobe have to be separate, but it's great if we could find one big space for all three of them. And I like that challenge, but that's what a support space is for hair and makeup to get the background ready and for background to hang out and stuff like that.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mel, we'll go back to you. And because you're on a show now, you can kind of tell us, what is a typical, day look like for you?
Well, we haven't started shooting yet, so we're still in prep. So right now, a typical day is, I guess for almost every show, it's like making sure that the one line schedule didn't change. And basically, just ticking the boxes on all of your locations. So, let's say, I guess I'll go back to like the last movie I was on. I think it was only a week shoot. We were like a splinter unit on a show. And I think we had 8 locations. So just to make this conversation manageable here, every single day, just going through each one of your locations. Okay, do I have do I have on my support spaces? Do I know what the grips are doing? Do I know what the grips are bringing? Do I know how many things are landing there during prep? Do I know what the art department needs? And just, that's kind of how I do it, is I just kind of keep circling around, right? Like, where are we? Is the date still the same? Do we have everything in place from every single department's angle? And then really importantly, like, is the location happy? So you just want to keep checking in. Maybe they haven't heard from you in a little while, because we do start so early. So maybe you just want to call someone and say, hey, we're still coming. We're still a month out, but I just checking in on you, because you could lose it. Someone can get aggravated with you for not keeping in touch. And they could say, yeah, no, I made plans already. You can't have this location anymore. And that's what you really want to avoid. So for me, it's just like a constant loop of like, tick, 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 check all the boxes and make sure we're in business.
And to build on that, one thing you and I learned on Nightmare Alley for sure is like, the bigger the project, the more of like the bubble you need to create. Like, everybody asks for things, you have to make sure that we can get them to the best of our ability. But then there are things that they don't ask and we might think they might ask later. And sometimes it's like, oh, well, that can't happen. But it's like, okay, Guillermo del Toro just asked us to turn that light on. How do we do that right now? So it's like,
right.
to try to like predict stuff like that could be impossible, but to like know everybody around you, have just clear things, like essentially put more work on your plate so that somebody could get what they want when they ask for it. And the same thing with keeping like the neighborhood happy and people happy and just stuff like that. So that was a new trick that we had to learn.
That was a new fun trick.
You want to keep going, Justin, of what your day-to-day like is now on this new Hulu project?
Well, we're about to start filming on Monday.
Ooh.
So that's fun. And so it's about a switch. It's gonna be very different than prep, but again, it's always circling back. It's like trusting my team for the most part to be on set, because basically my responsibility is to make sure we're teed up ahead of time. So leaving Heath and everybody else on set, making sure they have the right information, make sure everybody's part of the same plan, and they're excellent at their job. So we've all worked together and stuff like that. So being able to trust them and know that everybody knows the plan, so that I can focus on making sure everything in front of us is ready. And then when we move to another place, then making sure everything is cleaned up. So making sure that the house goes back to normal. If there's any damage, that we straighten that away, make sure people are getting paid. So it's just a constant circle, like Melanie is saying.
Heath, what's your day-to-day like right now?
Okay. It goes parking, making sure all the crew and background have a place to park that's not the neighbor's driveways. Restrooms, catering, making sure people have a place to eat. Enforcing all of the agreed upon conditions, making sure that they know we ought to protect the hardwood or not knock down this priceless glass mobile, and that happens throughout the day. Intermittently, the ADs will ask us to come in and whether or not we can use I don't know, move some furniture in the neighbor's lawn if it's in shot. And then at the end of the day, just restoring it as best we can the night of.
Got it. Thank you. Jhane?
So my day starts off by waking up every 10 minutes thinking I'm late for work, even though I'm not. So that's how it starts off. And then I head to set in my unit van. The first thing I do is check in with my location manager, location assistant on the walkie. Because usually I start off with signage, but there may be something that happened prior to me getting on set that they need me to do before I do signs. But if not, you do signage first. And then I put trash cans and all the support areas and on set to make sure that the crew has in the background and everyone else has places to throw out their trash. Going to catering to make sure there's enough seats and tables. Another important thing I forgot to mention in the first question was that I'm also responsible for setting up hair and makeup stations for background. So that's also one of the first things that I do on set as well. And then throughout the day, you're just periodically checking the restrooms to make sure that there's toilet paper stocked up in hand soap and throwing out the trash, as well as other trash that you placed around set. Just checking in with the location assistant and the ALM to see if there's anything else. If we're shooting outside and other residents in the area are outside, I personally like to just like check in with them and say hi and see if there's like any questions or problems that they have. Because a lot of times the residents have issues that you can just solve as a unit PA. Like you want to make the job easier for the ALM and the location manager and even location assistants if you can. And then after lunch, you throw out all that trash, make sure catering is good, clean up the space. And then once we wrap, you throw out the trash, clean up the bathrooms. And usually you tape up the trash with big blue tape and you have a vendor that comes out and picks it up either that night or first thing in the morning. And that's my typical day.
Thank you for go ahead, Justin.
And one thing, most of, I think all of us, no matter who in the location department, our day to day, we are the liaison between the film company and the rest of the world. So if anybody on earth that isn't on the crew has a question or an issue or a problem, whether it's the news or somebody walking through set or a dog or anything, we have to talk to that person or deal with it or answer that question. So that's constant.
Where's locations? Can somebody get locations to handle this? There's a fan on in this apartment here. Locations, can you go tell them to turn the fan off?
And it could be as simple as somebody's outside, it's funny. Somebody's like, "Oh, what you guys doing?" They're like, "Locations, come talk to this lady and keep her company." It could be, whether there's an issue or somebody just wants to talk. And it's just
it's a mayonnaise commercial.
Oh, not interested. Thanks.
And sometimes they even call for locations and we have nothing to do with it. It's kind of like the go-to, locations, and it might just be a different department's thing, but we're the go-to people for any sort of problem.
Yeah.
And it's great to have a great relationship with the neighborhood you're filming in. It's particularly on A Quiet Place 2 in Akron. I love them. I used to get free food. People invited me to birthday parties. It was just it was the best. So it's always great to have a great relationship with them. I still keep in touch with so many of the residents from Akron. I love them so much.
But it's also probably smart because the better relationship you have with them, I think the smoother things can go. And the more you can ask them, if you guys need things at the last minute, you're able to just go out to them and have a conversation because you have a good relationship with them. So.
And then afterwards, say if we film at a restaurant or something, kind of nice to go back to that restaurant and maybe some drinks in the house or or just a friendly face anytime you walk in there. You're greeted with love.
Yeah, definitely. Mel, I think you talked about this in the beginning, so everyone doesn't need to answer this question, whoever kind of wants to. But what departments are you guys collaborating with the most? And Mel, you kind of said everybody, but if you and Justin just kind of want to mention it again of the other departments that you are collaborating with the most.
I guess, I don't know, Justin, I'm curious what you would say too. I feel like we connect most with the art department if I had to pick a department because oftentimes their needs are so great. And once they start, we need to know every single thing they're doing to alter the location. If it's painting, even if it's just putting up a sign, if it's taking down a sign, if it's moving, moving a table and chairs out of the way if you're indoors. So they have to tell us all that information so we can relay it to the homeowner. So I do feel like it's the art department, especially in the beginning in prep. And then we also have a locations person at the property at all times when anyone's working there. So, whoever, it's oftentimes a location assistant that's there, they usually get pretty close with the art department. We deal with construction a lot, especially during prep. And then I think as we get closer to shooting, then we're really connecting with the grips and electrics more. But yeah, that's my answer. My answer is the art department. Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely the art department. And it's always like, it's never ending too, because it's like, we have to make sure that, whatever they change either goes back, and make sure they actually do it, or if something's broken, can we fix it? Timing, like they always need to get into new places. So it's like, we have to get in for filming, but then they have to, like, how many days do they need to set it up? So it's like, they could be in a house. We could be filming one day in a house, and the art department could be in there for 10 days before that, making sure it looks right. And then cleaning up for another 5 days after, you know what I mean? And then that's times 30 locations, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's never ending.
Yeah. So art department. But Jhane even talked about, though, like for them, it's different, because she mentioned how she's always dealing with, catering and making sure things is set up and making sure that the hair and makeup areas are set up. So you and Heath can also answer this, because you guys are probably dealing with other, departments that, maybe Justin and Melanie aren't having to deal with, like, on an everyday basis.
Yeah, I definitely, on an everyday basis, crafty, catering, hair, makeup, and wardrobe every day. Every show is different. Some departments have a lot more needs, like wardrobe on City on a Hill. They have a lot more needs than the wardrobe department did on A Quiet Place 2. So on A Quiet Place 2, I didn't have to talk with them as much, like, throughout the day. But on the City on a Hill, it's definitely different. But catering, you talk with every day. And I will say, for anyone who wants to be a unit PA, it's always really, really, really good to be really, really polite, because you have really hard days, and the better your relationship with these departments, they'll look out for you if you look out for them. So if you're doing something and it's a really challenging day and you have trash, if you're really nice to the catering team, like, they'll take care of it for you if they see you doing something else. So it's always good to have a great relationship with every department. Even if they aren't the nicest to you, people most likely will do really good to you if you do good to them.
That's why I mess with you, Jhane. Heath, do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, mostly what was already said. I definitely have gotten to know the art department really well. I mean, like, that's how I got to know David Butler so well. And but Melanie, I think, and Justin can both agree, there's a lot to be done through G&E. Melanie had me do that light study of Niagara Square overnight, and that was all to make sure we knew which streetlights to turn on and turn off. And then on this current project, there's a ton of stuff that needs to be done as far as the generator placement and making sure the fixtures on site work. And if it's like a buzzing light fixture outside, we got to de-energize it, swap it so that our guys can install their light, and like 40-watt bulbs. And so I've been speaking nothing but G&E for the past week, but definitely art department and those guys are our go-tos.
That's pretty cool, though, because I feel like you get to learn a lot of different stuff, at least more than you would because you're so involved with their needs. So it seems kind of cool. Stressful, but cool. All right. So go ahead.
I want to go off of what Jhane said, because she's so right. Like, the buck always has to stop with us, because everybody has needs, and we have to make sure that they get those. And if we're grumpy, then people just don't. It doesn't work very well. The cooperation and stuff like that. And if people are upset, and just keeping a smile is like the most important thing. And honestly, more people and more departments should have a smile than they do. But in locations, it's like, if you don't, like, it makes your job a lot harder.
Yeah, you can go home and you can scream and cry, but you have to keep smiling on set.
Yes.
And I can say all of you guys have always, you know, whether you guys were goofing around or had a smile or laughing or cracking joke, like, you know, it was definitely always a good time with you guys. So you guys for sure kind of set the standard, at least for me, of like, you know, a locations department looking happy to be there. Whereas some other departments, I'm like, why are y'all even here if y'all miserable every day? Like, this is the film industry. Go work corporate 9 to 5 if you want to be miserable every day. Like, what are you doing? Like, but
Preach.
I don't get it. Okay, so Justin and Mel, because you guys would be basically the people that will hire them. So what do you guys look for when you're hiring a unit PA?
You want to go, Mel, first? And often, especially in independent films, or if you're in smaller cities such as New York, you know, Syracuse or Buffalo or whatever, like often you're not going to get maybe the most experienced person. So often we just look for like people who are hungry, like super great attitudes, hard workers, is important, because at some point all of us didn't know how to do a job. And if you come hungry and you come with a great attitude and show potential and the effort and the want to be good, the need, then you're going to go far in life, and that's more important than anything. I don't care how much experience you have.
Yeah, I would say the same. Definitely, you know, people who are super, super interested, ready, you know, people who call back again or email again and say, hey, you know, I really want to, thank you. People who say thank you. One thing that, this is like just a hot tip, but it's really important to me when I'm reaching out to PAs to potentially hire, that they answer the phone with hello or hi, this is so-and-so. If I just call someone and they're like, yeah, or hello, or whatever, I'm already immediately like a little unimpressed. I know that's just like, I don't know, kind of a weird thing, but when you're getting ready to get a job or you put a bunch of applications or had some interviews, I just recommend you answering the phone with, hi, this is Melanie, or whatever your name is. I just think it shows some professionalism, and that's what we need. We need people that are going to be professional. We need people that are going to be people persons. And so that's what I'm looking for, is people that are ready to connect, people that are comfortable and excited.
Jhane and Heath, I want to ask you guys this question. Just name one thing or one quality why you think you've been hired in the locations department as like a unit PA. Whoever ready can go first.
Well, everyone knows how I feel about locations, but despite all odds, I still get called, and that
Why
just
then?
goes to
Why?
show that the people that I work with do value what I provide, and I really admire that in them, and I try to do right by them.
So what is it that
We
you
love you.
why
Yeah,
does
also
hiring you?
Justin's my little brother. Oh, what was that, Jazlyn?
I said, why does everybody keep hiring you? We know how you feel. What is it that you provide? They keep hiring you.
Oh, like just because I take things so personally. So if I drop the ball in any way, I try to pick up 5 more balls with it. What was it, Melanie? The fake snow that was left in the square? It was just thrown about, or there was like pieces of fluff that were sticking to moss and trees and stuff. And I felt so bad because on the day it was wrapped, I probably could have been like, pick that up, but I didn't, for whatever reason. So I felt that the onus is on me. So I just spent hours just pinching the foam up. And same thing, Justin, with the styrofoam with the shinobi cage. What was it? The Shimomura Woods. Yeah, and so I take it so personally, and I think that's why people keep calling me back, is because if I let something slip, I just scramble to compensate for it.
But it's also important to like have a short memory, like let things roll off your back, because shit's flying everywhere. It's hitting the fan, problems left and right, people upset, and you're getting all of it. and it rolls downhill, and you have to have a short memory, because if you let that internalize too deeply, then you're going to be ineffective going forward.
Yeah, I just wanted to totally, definitely, you have to have a thick skin for sure. I just wanted to say, Heath, one of the reasons that we hire you so often, well, first of all, we just love you. I don't know what it is. I'm speaking for Justin too. We're in love with you. We think you're fantastic. He is super dedicated, and he's also skill-wise super technologically amazing. So if we need something done on a computer, he'll do it. He is in early and he stays late without being asked, with actually being told not to. So yeah, serious dedication.
Heath, go home.
He's always go home.
I'm going home. You should go home too.
Jhane, why do you think people hire you?
I would say I feel like my positive attitude. Because like UniPA is like grunge work, so you have no choice but to kind of like either be positive about it and take that opportunity to learn more about the department or what you want to do, or go the opposite direction. So I think I went the right path by trying to stay positive throughout the day, and I feel like that's why I keep getting hired. I have like a great relationship with all the location managers and ALMs I've ever worked with. Like I was past like brat, like me and Melanie talk, Joe, Sean, my boss from the purge. So I think a positive attitude is like why. I hope so, Mel. Did I get that answer right?
I would say, I mean, Jhane, I would want Jhane on my team every single solitary time I work for the rest of my life. And yeah, she does have a really positive attitude. And Jhane, like, I would say, like, you like the stuff that I don't like. So there's kind of like a good balance there, because it's like, well, she likes to do it. I don't like, it's like that nursery rhyme, like somebody, I think it's a great relationship. I would also say Jhane is super dedicated, that Jhane is everything you want in a person on your team. Everything. And then some. And she's fun.
Thanks.
I love this whole little moment, but we'll keep it going. But I love this. This is great. And everyone can answer this question. We can start with Heath first, and then we'll go Heath, Justin, Jhane, and Melanie. But what are some tricks of the trade that you kind of wish you knew before getting into the locations department, Heath?
Oh, before getting into the department, not necessarily like before a project.
Yeah, no, just in general, before working in locations. Like, what do you wish you knew before?
Just that it really pays to have be diligent in your note taking and keeping contact, like phone numbers and email addresses of people who you've relied on in the past. I had a hard time remembering what temperature a bathroom trailer's generator will freeze if left overnight not running, and had I wrote down that note back in February, I would be that much more prepared in September. So just keeping a record of everything anybody's ever said. I write down quotations during the Tech Scout to make sure that I don't lose any information from trying to paraphrase what the gaffer said. And I think had I done that earlier in my career, I might have been all the better for it.
Awesome. Thank you. Justin?
That's a good question. Can you come back to me? That's tough. That's a good one.
Jhane, you ready?
I think Heath answered it perfectly. Like with the note taking, I wish I would have done that a lot better. Sometimes someone will tell you something in the heat of the moment, so you think you only need that answer for that moment, and then it slips your mind, and then you work on another project, or maybe next week you're shooting, and you don't have that answer once again because you didn't write that note down, like he said about the generator. So I think that note taking is really, really important. I wish I would have known that or taken that more seriously in the past, so that I don't have to find that same answer over and over again. Yeah. That's insane.
Because a lot of stuff comes up all the time, especially in this industry. It's like the same things will keep coming up, and you're like, damn, I should have wrote that down because they're gonna ask me a project or something like that. So I can see that. I think that's something that I can probably do better on too. So for sure. Mel?
Yeah, that is a hard question because I think, obviously we all wish we knew everything right when we started, I think. But I would say, you know, I think you just learn from experience. So you don't know what you don't know until you started. Like as I sit here in this bench, there's a bell tower that's been going off every probably 15 minutes, and all I can think about is, man, if we were shooting right now, we would be in so much trouble because we don't know. So I think just the biggest skill I think before I would have entered the department was knowing to anticipate, knowing how to anticipate the needs. And obviously I think I'm still working on that. Maybe you'll just continue to do that the whole, in your whole career. You just keep learning and learning, new things to know, new things to remember. I agree with the note taking. Yeah, I think that's the best I can do is I just wish I knew everything from the beginning.
Won't know that until you've gone through it. So
I get over communication. I mean, sometimes it's better most of the time than it is not. But over communicate. Oh, this is okay. I got it. Perfect. Bad information told sooner is good information. If you have bad information, whether it's your fault or completely unrelated from your fault, and you hold on to that thinking you can fix it before it happens, and then it happens, or you didn't give people enough time to like get ahead of it, and then that information that you withhold that you were responsible for now screws other people up, then it's your fault. So bad information given sooner is good information.
see that. Yeah. That's the smart.
Like I'll give an example if that
Yeah, give an example.
If we're shooting and there is a truck coming at noon and lunch is at noon, right? It's gonna be a really loud truck, and it's like, oh man, I forgot to tell somebody. I found out 2 days ago. Now it's the day. Like, oh, they're gonna be so mad at me. Okay, but it's at lunch, so at noon, like we'll be at lunch. And then all of a sudden, we're going into meal penalties, and they're trying to get this scene, and they're paying extra money by holding people from lunch for that extra time. And then that truck shows up, and it interrupts everything at the worst possible time. And instead of you telling somebody about it so they could plan ahead, it's now become an even worse issue.
I get that. Do you guys get it?
I get it.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It sucks either way, but it makes sense. You're like, no, maybe I can handle it, because you don't want to add on to the stress already to the producers, directors. You're like, I can control this, I can handle it, but now look what happened. It could have got worse. So sometimes it is better to just give that information ahead of time, because now it's like you said, it's an even bigger problem. So, but I think that's also using your judgment of like certain things maybe can be controlled, but just kind of understanding when you need to share that information, when it's like, I might be able to handle this. So I think it's just judgment and knowing, like having more experience in the industry and like knowing what you can work out and what you kind of can't.
And there's always other things that we don't know, or somebody has planned that we don't know about, and then it hits us from the side and it's like, oh man, I had no idea.
Yeah. Let me see. This will be again for kind of Justin and Mel. Talk to us about a little about being in the union, getting into the union, because I think now in New York City, in our area versus LA, it's different unions with location managers. So just share what it's like being in it and how people can kind of get into the union for the locations department.
Justin, why don't you start this one? Do you want to go? Yeah.
Yeah. It's so locations is newly taken under the wing of the Teamster Union. So it's a little complicated because we're in the same union as the drivers, but it's not all the same rules. We're kind of absorbed into it. So it gets a little complicated, but basically in New York City, location managers have to be in the DGA. And yeah, this is where it gets crazy. So it's like everybody under location managers is now in 817, which is a Teams union. And location managers in the city have to be DGA. And to get into the DGA, you need production assistant days. And technically, getting as a location assistant doesn't work towards those days. But there's a bubble, like there's a 30-mile radius. There's a certain radius outside of New York. I forgot the number is. But outside of that, certain cities have different ones. But outside of that, you can hire other people. So like Melanie and I are able to work as location managers outside of New York City as 817. But we could not go to New York City to do the same job as location managers. We can go work as ALMs or assistants or scouts in New York City. But until we're in the DGA, we cannot work in New York City at that position. So it's, our department is, our union is a little bit more complicated than others for those reasons.
What would you say you have to have for the DGA?
The DGA, you need 500 days to qualify for the DGA. And here's the crazy thing too. So if you're an AD or you're a production assistant, right? And you're an independent AD, right? Like non-union AD. And you have 500 days. And the second you get into a union, you can submit to the union, like the DGA, and they'll let you in. You know what I mean? I think you have to get a couple people to say like, yes, they check your files, make sure you have your days, whatever, you're handed a book. And once you get in, you cannot take non-union jobs. So you could get in and you could be really good at your job, but if nobody's going to hire you at that level, and now the people that you've worked with can't hire you in non-union, then all of a sudden you can't get work until you get it. So when you decide to make that switch, you have to make sure you know you're going to get work at that level.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
So for like Heath and Jhane, or people who are starting at the entry level position on locations, what do they have to do to get into the union? Every department is different. Like DGA, you gotta have days, and it's just different requirements. What are your guys' requirements? And not necessarily to get to a location manager, but just to enter the union in locations.
I mean, Justin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's still being worked out. So right now, I don't know the exact number of hours you need to get into the locations department. I do know that in the ALM, assistant location manager, location assistant position, and location scout position are all covered in the union. There's no like unit PA, Teamster, union position that I know about. I could be wrong. I'm still learning about it. Oh my gosh, was that my beep? Sorry, I don't know.
That's me. Sorry, guys.
Okay. I got into the union because I happened to be working on a union film, and we live in Buffalo, so you kind of get lucky when you live in a smaller city because you just get folded right into the union and basically you're in. Also in, outside of that radius of New York City, the DGA radius, which I almost want to say is 80 miles, but I don't really know. You don't need to be in any union at all to be a location manager. You do have to be in the union to be an ALM or a location assistant or a scout. So Justin's right. It's confusing and it's complicated.
And there's really no difference between a location assistant and a unit PA. And Melanie, please correct me if I'm wrong. There's a little bit of difference. There's a little bit more on the grunt work and less responsibility for assistants, but often they end up doing the same thing. And it's kind of just a difference between like a location assistant is in the union and a unit PA isn't. So it's like, that's an opportunity to get in without having to commit to a union.
Yeah.
And up here, people can get into the union without any days. Or they've done one movie and somebody says, okay, because there's not many of us up here. And obviously the union wants more people on the job in the union. So it's actually quite easy in here or in New York City, actually. In locations.
Thanks for kind of explaining that. I know getting into the union stuff can always be a little bit confusing and stuff. So obviously it sounds like y'all department is still confusing. They still figuring that out now, especially with the whole Teamster and DGA thing, to be honest. But thanks for kind of like explaining it the best way you guys can. So we're kind of getting to our last question. and everyone is working on something. So I just want to hear what your experience is like. Heath, we can start with you. How have you seen your job change now due to COVID? And I guess just what are some of the guidelines that you have to abide by now, or just, how has your job changed?
Well, you can't get into the office without a negative test. And while you're in the office, you have to wear a mask. And that test is only good for, I think, 4 to 5 days. I know that half of the crew is split into a testing group A, and a half is in a testing group B. And aside from the inconvenience of having to wait 15 minutes while the test is processed, it affects you relatively little. As far as the location's concerned, it might be a little trickier convincing a neighbor to let us use their restroom for some of our more sensitive crew members, under the liability of, well, we had to spray the set with like an organic disinfectant. Are we gonna have to spray that neighbor's house too if we want to use their restroom? Are we liable for any crew members? They gotta take a dump there if we don't have it sprayed. And it's definitely a challenge to work within the guidelines in such a way that allows us to make better use of the area surrounding the very disinfected set.
Got it. Thank you. Justin?
Like day to day? Is the question? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, overall, as a location manager, I mean, just like, what are the new challenges of doing your job because of COVID and the guidelines that you have to work within?
One big thing is like every place we go into has to be like COVID sanitized. Everybody has to be tested. So it's like the art department needs to get in there to do their work for 3 days ahead before shooting. So I need to clean it before they get there. And because they're in zone B, they're offset. When they're done, I have to clean it again before filming shows up. And then we do it after night, and then the same thing in reverse. A big thing that is becoming such a pain, and Melanie, heads up, because we have reps on set, homeowners, people, businesses, politicians, people coming and going all the time. We need people to be there. So we have to coordinate getting people tested. Like if I know there's going to be 3 people from this building going to be here and they have to be here with us, I have to make sure they're coordinated ahead of time to get tested, or that we have tests for them, and it's costly. And I can't, and people can't hang out on set. Like if the mayor shows up and he wants to get close, like I literally have to kick him out because he can't get close to us. Because if, God forbid, an actor gets sick, we are all out of work for 2 weeks minimum. So that's been a big thing. It's just testing and people coming and going and cleaning and stuff. So it's great. It's a lot, but you get into a rhythm for sure.
It's like it becomes normal. At first it's real tough, and then it just kind of becomes like what's normal now. It's like what we begin to get used to. So that's the good thing. I mean, ain't a good thing, but humans definitely will adapt and start to get comfortable to whatever is become normal in our life. So we'll all get used to it as filmmakers. Hopefully it don't last a long time and we can go back to kind of the old way. But, for now, this is what it's like. Jhane, tell us a little bit about, how COVID has kind of changed your day-to-day, or what the biggest challenges are for you now.
We have a meeting next week, so I don't know the full out details. I know that there's 2 of us, another unit PA, that the way we clean and the way we wrap as far as trash and waste management and everything goes is going to be a lot different. I can imagine it's going to be really complicated because we have a health and safety team now, but I know that a lot of the questions that should be directed toward them are going to come to locations first. So I know it's going to be a lot of please ask health and safety, or being the liaison between crew and the health and safety department. But I'm not really sure yet what's going to change. Our meeting's next week, so I don't have all the answers. I'm sorry.
Keep us updated.
I will, I promise.
Mel, go ahead.
Yeah, so everything that Heath and Justin said, I won't repeat. And we do have a similar situation where we actually have to fog, I think, in between crews that come in. So like the art department and the grip and electric can't work together at the same time in the space anymore. I don't know if you guys have to do that too. But yeah, you have to clean in between crews too, and during prep. And then again before filming, I guess I did just repeat it. Another thing that's happening is they are, there's a red, yellow, and green zone. I'm guessing that's happening for you too, Jazzy. So basically, if it's a red zone, no one can go in it except for the people that are cleared to be in the red zone, which is basically like the director, the actors, the DP, and the camera crew and sound. So that's something they're taking really seriously, and the red zone can turn on and off. So if it goes to yellow, then people can come in, move a C-stand, move a light, whatever. So that's something new. And then the green zone is where you can potentially take your mask off as long as you're away from people. That would be where you would eat. Maybe just get a break and take a breath with the mask off. But that's something new that we're all figuring out, and that we haven't started yet, like I said, so it's going to be complicated. And then the testing too, I don't know what Locations is doing for you, Justin, but on ours we have a testing site, a testing trailer on set. That's another thing we have to find a place for, and another thing that has to have a large footprint, on top of all the trucks and everything else that we're finding places to keep places.
Yeah, we have a tent, but like convincing somebody, neighbor, to let us do COVID testing for 100 people a day on somebody's front lawn is like, yeah, it's interesting.
It's pretty insane. So that was the last question, but I have one more that I want to ask all of you guys. It's just kind of a fun thing being in Locations, and we'll start with Heath or whoever wants to start, but I want everyone to answer. Give your best experience, and this is all specifically being in the Locations department. So one of your best experiences and one of your worst experiences. And whoever wants to go first can go first. I know you might have to think of some time.
So I get yelled at for running on set because it's a safety hazard, and if there's no like cable crosses, you could trip over and unplug a generator, and that'd be the worst thing if you unplugged it. But despite that, I would still put some hustle, and this was known by Matt Fleck. Oh, I think he was a first AD on Colebrook, right? And so Bill Fichtner and Kim Coates are in a car down the street because they went back to their ones, but Kim had left his suitcase or work bag in the driveway where he's at the end of the take, and so somebody needed to bring the suitcase back to him, and so Fleck looks around and he sees me. And he doesn't need to go on walkie. He's just like, go, Heath. And I grab this suitcase and I run down the street and I make the handoff. And then he's like, hide behind a car. And then I just duck out of picture. And the take went on. So that's one of my fondest memories on the first movie I ever worked on.
Cool.
It's not really Locations related, but
that's all right. That's all right. We're not going to say the worst, but what's
a lesson to be learned? Sorry, what?
What's a not so good experience? Whether it's a lesson or something that made the task super difficult, just something that's not a good experience.
Let me go through them. So no, Jazlyn, I'm not gonna do that. I save it for somebody else.
We'll save it. Justin, do you want to go?
My favorite is like it's such a rush. Like it's like everybody asking for so much and this and things going crazy and stuff. It's crazy and it's intense and it's stressful, but like it's such a rush that like it wears you out. But it's like the whole time you're like, oh my god, it's endless, and then it's over and you're like, I can't wait to do it again. You know what I mean? It's like the adrenaline and the dopamine hits you just get, and then I'll never forget when Melanie and when we were doing Nightmare Alley, we were about to go home and it was snowing and the lighting was perfect and we were in front of this beautiful building and Bradley Cooper's walking outside and Melanie's like, come over here. She's like, just let's just unplug the walkies and just like look at all of this, because like we just killed ourselves for the last 2 weeks to do all of this. Like, let's just appreciate it for a second before we go home. And then 10 minutes go by, we're like, all right, let's get the fuck out of here. But some like stuff like that, that's just, I'll never forget that.
You want to share a not so good experience or something that made, you know, it really difficult on a job or in locations?
I want to tell, I got a great story, but I'll be here forever to tell them well. I got like dead cow stories and all sorts of crazy stuff, but or maybe I'll try to tell that one quickly. I'll try to tell that one quickly because it's crazy. So we were supposed to get an animatronic cow for the binge, and we were in Memphis, New York, and they shipped it to Memphis, Tennessee. It happened, and nobody told me, and I'm on set, and I'm landing like Paul, the fox, the props guy he's the props guy, and so he's in charge of like everything from animals to trucks to like your book bag. And he's nowhere to be found because he's dealing with the animatronic cow. He's trying to find. So we have like a fake stuffing cow. There's like a truck coming in, and there's like an 18-wheeler because the truck is supposed to hit the cow. And all these things are coming in, and nobody knows where Paul is. And I'm just like, go over there, go over there. And it's getting crazy. It's getting crazy. Everybody's looking for Paul. The animal association's here because we have a real cow. Then a real cow shows up, and she's pregnant because the other cow they had couldn't come for some reason, so the cow's like screaming the whole time, and she needs a home, and she's got a giant trailer, and there's an 18-wheeler in the truck. Now I got movie trucks rolling in, and I got the animal association asking me why there's a pregnant cow on set. I don't know those questions or those answers, and everything's hitting the fan. And this dude in a pickup truck rolls in from the middle of the boonies. I don't know where this guy came from. His car is covered in God knows what, and he's got a barrel in the back. He's like, hey, where's Paul? I'm like, I don't know where Paul is. Wait in line. And he's like, well, I got this. So he has this barrel apparently, and I turn my back, and he's setting this barrel down next to the catering tent, and it's a barrel of dead cow parts. Apparently somebody thought it'd be a good idea to take the cover of the fake stuffed cow and put in real hoofs and pieces or something, and it wasn't cleared by anybody. And this guy's setting this stinky barrel of dead cow parts next to catering tent, and everybody's freaking out, and it stinks, and it's hot, and I'm like, I'm gonna get this shit out of here. Like, go put it over there. And he's like, oh man, you don't want me to put it over there. It's gonna sit in the sun, and when this thing sits in the sun, it's not gonna go well. Like an hour, someone's like, hey, where's the animatronic cow? I'm like, go find like Paul somewhere. I don't know. Let me find Paul. Like, I don't have these answers.
Oh my gosh. Ew.
That was.
How did it get solved though? Like, what, did he just leave them there? Did you guys use them?
Oh yeah, and then he was like, oh, Paul says he's gonna give me $1,000. I'm like, dude, I don't have $1,000. I don't know where Paul is. You gotta get off on set. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm like, oh my God, please kill me. And then they left and we didn't use the dead cow parts. And at 7 o'clock in the morning when we're wrapping out, I'm getting calls from everybody freaking out because nobody took the dead cow parts, and now it's on this lady's front lawn. So yeah, that was nuts.
It sounds awful. Ew.
It was so awful in the moment, and I'm so happy it happened.
Oh my gosh.
So funny.
Jhane?
And I feel so bad. I would have cried probably. I probably like, this is my last job ever working on. I would have probably cried. But I think my favorite was when, like I said earlier, it was Akron and The Quiet Place too. Like, as a unit PA, you get a lot of free time if you do your job quickly. And they used to let me drive the golf cart. So I'll be like driving up and down set with my golf cart, hanging out. In between, like when I had breaks, there was like the guy who owned the gun shop. So I would go in there and he would like teach me how to like hold the gun. And I would go next door to the pharmacy, hang out with that guy. So I was just like friends with like everyone in the town. And it was this older lady who would like have lemonade, and I would sit on her porch with her. And it was just like, I was like a little Akron resident. And I remember one time I like left my receipts at the grocery store, and one of the cops like drove me to the grocery store with his sirens. It was just like the best time ever. I really loved being a unit PA at Akron. It was just like, I don't know, I just loved the people there. I think the worst time is probably, I think everyone on location knows that sometimes we'll like get a location for like a support space, and the place isn't that clean already when we get it. And so as a unit PA, when you're done, you're supposed to like clean it up, get all your stuff out. But sometimes you'll have people who'll say, oh, this place is really dirtier than like before you guys got here. I mean, since you guys got here, and like you guys, like, you know, it's not true. So you'll like have people who try to use your services and like kind of make you a maid. And one time for City on the Hill, we rented this church and it was really, really dirty. But I did a sweep once we left, and he like convinced me that like the floor was dirty because of us, and like all this stuff that didn't belong to us was like ours. And so I had to just like do it. It was the last day when we found out that we were wrapping because of COVID. And like my managers were like really stressed out. So I wasn't going to go to them and say like, this guy is like accusing us of dirtying his place. So I just like did it. And that just like, you get that a lot sometimes as a unit PA. People kind of like get over. Sometimes just do it if it's not like a big deal. That's probably the worst. It is.
Mel, last but not least.
Sorry. Okay, so I have so many stories, so I'm just gonna keep it to one that's kind of a best and worst moment. But there's so many. I have to agree with Justin when we just unplugged our walkies, and it was like the perfect snowfall. Oh man, we just kind of watched because it was a rough week. It was an amazing week. It was a fun week. This is the Nightmare Alley shoot. And I'm gonna say that that shoot in particular, you know, everything was changing every day. Everything was changing because we were having like hurricane, tornado level winds. The weather wasn't cooperating with us at all. And so much of that falls on locations. You're just like apologizing to everyone, you know, and it was Thursday, I think we were like 4 days in or something, 3 days in. And I had been on the job since October. So I had been on it for a long time. I had Justin, I think he was on it like 2 weeks prior at that point. Heath had come on 3 weeks prior. And I was high level stressed out because we were holding a location to shoot at that night, but still trying to shoot at a different location at that moment. So it was kind of high level stress, and I was really feeling it. And I've got all these balls in the air, and they decided they wanted all the street lights off in the middle of the square in Buffalo. And I was like, and you know, the National Grid people were ghosting me. You know, it was like I couldn't get anyone on the phone. Everything's happening like go, 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 go. And all you want to do is make everybody happy. All you want to do is let this show go off without a hitch. Like that is our prime goal. That's all we want. And I take it hard when I feel personally responsible, when I can't accomplish the impossible things they want us to do. But usually we do get it done. I feel like we often do. So I'm feeling stressed out. Niagara Mohawk shows up. I'm already getting yelled at because the lights aren't off yet. It's not even dark yet, but the lights have just gone on. And all of a sudden I see Justin, like this hero, and he's calling the truck over. Come, like point to the light. Go to the next one, point to the light. And he got all those lights off. I swear to God, it was like 20 minutes, and then we just started rolling. So it was one of those like team moments. And I think that's my favorite thing about the department or a film in general. It's like, this is a team and we are so in it together. And I was at such a low moment. And then, you know, somebody came in from my team, and it was just like, I felt so good, so great, so happy, so uplifted. I will never forget that.
Awesome, Mel. Thank you for sharing. Thank you all for sharing so much and sharing your stories and just talking about being in the industry. I love hearing them. I love talking to you guys and getting to see your guys' faces. And I'm sure everyone else on here definitely learned a lot and enjoyed listening to you all. So thank you so much to everybody, to Film Network. And now we're going to open it up to some Q&A for whoever has some questions. You guys can unmute yourself and ask the question if you want. if you want, I think you might be able to write in the chat, but you can just kind of unmute yourself and ask away if you have anything.
So I know we kind of talked about it already, but could we just do like a quick rundown of the hierarchy of the department? What just I guess what each title is.
I'll go, I guess. Location manager, then ALMs, and then coordinator. And look, coordinator is usually in the office. They're making sure like check requests go in, paperwork is all settled, maps are being made. They're kind of always off-site, but sometimes there are ALMs that are to do that. Sometimes there's jobs without coordinators, so they come and go. And then there's assistants, and then there's unit PAs.
Where do scouts fall in?
Oh, scouts, sorry, yeah. They're kind of, a lot of ALMs are scouts, managers scout, everybody kind of scouts, but there are people who only scout and that's all they ever want to do. And some people are just really damn good at it. And, you know, it's good to have a well-rounded skill set. But scouts can be, I could have 3 scouts on during pre-production and 2 of them turn into ALMs or 3 of them don't even work on the job when it comes down to production. So they can kind of come and go. So if you're interested in scouting and you know an area or you're like a real estate person or something, you have a good knack for that, anybody can do it. It's just about finding places, locating them, and then taking pictures.
Got it. Thank you, Jazlyn.
Yeah, just to add into that, I did start out on Quiet Place 2 as a scout, and then moved into the ALM position, you know, once the scouting was done. And then Justin's right, we continue to scout the whole time, but scouting is its own position, its own rate. It's different from, you know, the other position rates. It's its own thing too.
Thank you for explaining that. Any other questions? No?
Hi, Sean. I see you there, Sean. Sean helped us out as a parking PA on Quiet Place too.
Ron was great.
Thank you. Anytime you guys need anyone parking cars or kicking cops out of parking spots.
Anybody else before we wrap up? I want to give you guys an opportunity. Any other questions, or are we all good? Going once, going twice. Sold to Field Labor Network. Well, thank you guys so much. I'll speak for everybody, but I think this was awesome. You guys gave so much information, and it was very personable too. You guys shared a lot of stories, and you know, you guys gave great feedback to Heath and Jhane. So thank you guys so much. And also, I'm so happy to see all of your faces. And again, thanks to Hannah, Robin, Film Network, as always, for putting this together. I'm not sure how many you guys have done so far, but they've done a decent amount. And as always, these are recorded and they'll be up if you guys want to watch it again, or if you have friends or people who want to watch them and who just weren't able to watch it with us now. But yeah, and again, this is something that everyone does for free. They want to share information. So we kind of always ask. They have a charity. So if you guys would like to donate, Robin or Hannah, if you guys can kind of put it, I think it's in the chat right now, but it's Friends of Night People. So that is the charity that they ask if you can donate to. Also, if you go to their website, they do have merch that you can purchase, and some of those proceeds go to the charity as well. No one has it on, but they have, you know, like t-shirts and buttons.
I'm just stretching.
Yes, there we go. Thank you, Kyle. See, Kyle's repping one of the t-shirts. So definitely check out their website. And also, just if you guys aren't already looped in and you're in the Buffalo area, there's two Facebook pages that you can check out. I think it's Buffalo, what is it, Robin? So I don't get it wrong, the two Facebook groups.
Buffalo Niagara Film Professionals. I'm actually doing a quick Google search so I can drop the link in the chat too.
And then another one like Western New York Actors Helping Actors. And again, that's more for actors, but they film productions, people are going to post stuff in there. So you'll see jobs that are coming or whatever. So those are two Facebook groups that are local to the Buffalo, New York area if you're trying to check some jobs out. So they're in the chat now if you guys want to go take a look, if you want to save those links. for their merch and for the Facebook website. So again, thank you, Robin. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Film Neighbor Network. Heath, Justin, Jhane, Melanie, thank you guys so much. It was so good to see your guys' faces. Again, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. And thank you, Jez, for moderating.
Of course.
Thank you, Jazzy.